Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Matrix Mash. I'm Emily Moyer from Off Planet Radio. Robert Phoenix from 11th House Astrology, 15 Minutes of Flame, and Friday Farcast is here. And man, is there a shit ton of Matrix to mash tonight. So we're going to get to it. But Robert, how you doing? I mean, really, how you doing?
I'm great. I was built for these times.
Me too. I'm kind of loving this. Not in a sick way, but like it's weird. Like my superpowers or my ability to overcome previous challenges seems to be coming online now.
I think that could be said for quite a few of us.
Yeah.
This is the wake up call. One of the things that I brought up on my show yesterday was a very interesting kind of discussion about evil and good and villains and heroes. I don't know if you caught that.
I didn't catch that part.
So it's quite interesting. Akira Kurosawa, the great film director from Japan, has some fantastic films of both spectacular heroes and villains. And one of the films that he's known for that has a great hero is The Seven Samurai. And the Seven Samurai, of course, became translated cinematically to the Magnificent Seven, and then became the kind of the basis for the first series of the Star Wars movies. And Larry Kasdan, who was, I believe, the director of Silverado, and Body Heat, really talented writer and director, and one of the writers for The Empire Strikes Back. He and Kurosawa see this dialectic between evil and good, and the hero, the villain and the hero, in a very similar light. And one of the things that Kurosawa says is that when the villain arrives, the villain is complete. Like the villain doesn't evolve, and the hero evolves. The hero has to evolve through trial and circumstance, but the villain doesn't. The villain is the villain, and the hero evolves through acts of courage or bravery or ingenuity, right? So we're showing up now, and we're in the process of evolving our stories and evolving our mythic and heroic powers, because evil has already been here and is now in some ways showing its face. And it may it may evolve technologically, but the state that it comes from is already intact, right? It is what it is here and now. We are ourselves, we're undiscovered country. And so this is really the most interesting thing for me during these times. And who are we now, and what are we becoming, and who are we becoming? And this is I think the hidden narrative around where we're at. So when you say, I feel like I'm beginning to switch on or come online or whatever those things are, you're evolving.
Yeah.
And we're all evolving, and how could we not evolve through a very catalytic time?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a great sort of impromptu, totally off the cuff conversation with Michael Wand on Conspiracy Cocktail this past weekend. And he just had this, he said, like, we were made for this, man. Like all the shit we've been through, all the stuff we've known, this is our time. Like this is this is what it's all been about. And there was this excitement in his voice, and we just synced up and had like an incredible conversation that connected in so many areas, right? Like, I mean, down to like, we have a cat with the same name, you know what I mean? Like just everything lined up. Yeah. But that he had that sort of excitement of a little kid that was like, yeah, man, this is what it's about. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I'm feeling. Like I'm liking this. Like I'm, it doesn't, sure, it's like annoying that I can't, go to a party or go to my favorite restaurants or whatever. But the flip side of it is that like, I'm not spending half my days in traffic, and I have a lot more time to get things done. And like little tasks that I used to put off because there was something more appealing to do. Now I'm doing them, and there's a sense of satisfaction and an ability to like get things done that were for personal growth. Like I've always been good at working hard for other people, but not necessarily for myself. And now like, it's just me here some days, you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, what, like there's not a distraction of going on this chore out of the house or this task out of the house or going to get a snack at my favorite health food bar or whatever. It's all just like, how many things can I get done today? And,
that's great.
And whatnot. And so it's kind of cool. But I also liked your reference with the samurai and the Magnificent Seven. And I don't know if you remember, but when the women's gymnastics team won in 1996, when they won the gold medal as a team for the first time ever, I think that was, they called them the Magnificent Seven. And of course, the hero of that situation was Carrie Strug, right? Who fell and broke her ankle on the first vault and had to come through on the second one. And that was something she had always been kind of really good, but never could quite come through at the important moments. Her whole career that had been sitting over her. She'd never been able to shine as bright as Dominique Moceanu or Shannon Miller or whatnot because of this inability to sort of put it all together when the moment counted, even though she was great in practice. And she did. She evolved at that moment, right? She went from just solid team player to I'm going to bring it home, kids, in those 30 seconds or that 1 minute of her life. And I think we're going to see a lot of that right now as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy. And I kind of got into it one night on Facebook. I posted something on Facebook, and this guy kind of came after me and said I was spreading fear, and it was really kind of odd, and he didn't really know who I was, and I really wasn't spreading fear. I was basically saying, we don't pay attention to the narrative around this whole coronavirus thing. Don't watch the news, unhook from this, because we don't want to feed it. We want to feed a certain portion of reality in some ways. And I believe that. And then he came after me like, you don't have any solutions and this and that, and you're just spreading more fear. And it was quite unusual. But I said to him, look, man, I said, you don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know what's going to happen. And there's going to come a time where we're going to have to, for lack of a better term, evolve. We're going to have to come online, and none of that's going to be predictable. And this is really where I think, what they call like the frisson is. And then I said, look, we're probably going to agree on more things than not. We're probably on the same team here. Like, why did you have to attack me? It's like, don't attack me. Figure out what I'm talking about. And he brought up some really good points because of all the technology and the sophistication and the AI and the robotics and the computer modeling and the Sims and all that shit. It's like, okay, well, so what? So what? I mean, we have something. We have heart. We have spirit. We have souls, and those things count for a lot. So it's an exciting time. It's not an easy time, obviously, but I think we were built for these times.
Yeah, and something, Robert and I generally, we don't have a set date or time for this show. It usually turns out to be every 2 or 3 weeks, but usually what happens is there's some interesting idea or impetus, and then we sort of start to collate some information around that and a few other things. But one of the things we were chattering back and forth about today, and I think yesterday as well, is there is another person right now who has a chance to evolve into a real hero. And I was just sort of watching some of the background of that before we got on the air, and that person is Jimmy Dore. You sent me a video. We've talked about Jimmy Dore before here. We had that show. I forget what the whole title of the show was, a few back, but the term The Awakening of Jimmy Dore was in that. And we looked at his birth chart in relation to the chart for Medicare, the Medicare program. And we were kind of talking about his sort of fixation on this Medicare thing that is not like, in one sense, it's like, okay, he's obviously, he thinks that would be helpful to people. But if you really take a holistic look at what Medicare for all would mean, it's really like a death cult. It's like a preparation for the other side kind of thing. And we were examining why he might be so set that this is the most important thing. And of course, his birth chart lined right up with the creation of Medicare and all that kind of stuff. But he, during the course of what's been going on in the last couple of weeks with, and since we did that show, with the complete lack and failure of Bernie Sanders to, have any kind of spine, and then the really turncoat trick that Tulsi Gabbard kind of pulled, he has really started to become angry. And he's just not holding back anymore. And I'm starting to see him ask questions that are the questions that you and I asked 10, 15, 20 years ago, right? When we were coming out of whatever our program was. I happen to come from a similar previous mindset as Jimmy, in terms of I grew up in a very progressive family and I had those values. And I remember how pissed off I was when I started to figure it out. And he's there. And he, he basically today he had on the guy who started the Amazon strike and got fired for it. I missed that part, but when I tuned in, he was talking to a guy who was like a union boss, right? And this guy, Jimmy, was trying to get him fired up, and this guy basically was having no ideas and had no fight. And he was basically saying, yeah, no, we're doing what we can do. Write letters to your senators, right? Call OSHA. We're trying, don't make too much of a stir about things. We're just trying to, do this standard Democrat. Jimmy was so mad. He was yelling at him, and he cut the interview earlier, and he just started going off and screaming and yelling about how no progressives are doing anything, and none of these people who are like in unions are getting it and whatever. And he's starting to have that clarity that, like, wait a second, what if I've been duped? And the next thing he fucking does is pull up a quote from Larkin Rose defining the process of one recognizing that they're a slave. And when you're quoting Larkin Rose, like I told you right before we started, you're about 8 weeks from libertarianism and about 12 weeks from anarchist. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, so he did that. Right. And then in the next segment, he read a quote from Charlie Kirk, who's like a conservative guy who works with like Candace Owens, going around to campuses trying to expose the idiocy of the left, on these indoctrinated campuses and stuff. So suddenly he doesn't care where he finds truth. He's got like his truth radar on, and he's willing to consider anything that has the resonance of truth. And boy, is his bullshit detector on for people who don't.
Yeah, well, he's having the red pill moment.
You sent me that video about the Italians, what was going on over in Italy that he had done. And you were kind of noticing that he was on fire.
Yeah.
But just listening to him and his wife, I mean, they were angry, dude. And now, like, she was reading a headline that Adam Schiff, apparently, they're finding out that Congress is out till the 20th, even though in the bailout, they just gave themselves $250 million for raises as part of the bailout. So they gave themselves a raise, and now they're on their spring break. Maybe they're going to Florida since Ron DeSantis cleared the beaches for them, right? Or something like that. Yep. But so they're doing that, and Adam Schiff is talking about when they return, when they go back in session, the first thing he's going to do is launch an investigation into Trump's coronavirus response. And Jimmy and his wife, Steph Zamorano, were just like, I mean, they hate that. They hated the impeachment stuff and all that kind of these investigations into whatever. They think it's a waste of time, which it is. But you should have just heard them. I mean, it was like, you know that energy when somebody first discovers that 9/11 was bullshit, and they're yelling at their family because their family doesn't seem to understand. It was that. It was that.
Wow. Welcome, Jimmy Dore. You put the sunglasses on, brother. Welcome. And you just keep going. Just keep going and keep breaking down these so-called alliances and allegiances, which have defined, your perception and your loyalties for a very long time. I mean, well, I think a lot of people are starting to go through that now. And this is one of the upsides of, I was having this thought, 9/11 happened really quickly. I mean, really, it was planned for a very long time, but when it was executed, it happened.
About a half an hour, yeah.
So what we're witnessing now is like a controlled demolition that's going frame by frame.
Yeah.
So during 9/11, people were shocked because of the speed and the rapidity, and they're just completely shocked and traumatized, and then we're trying to recover from it. because this thing has the slow creep effect, it's giving people time to kind of wake up. Like, what's really going on here? Okay, well now building 2 or whatever is about halfway demolished. But the frame, frame by frame by frame by frame, until finally both of them will be rubble, and that's when we'll be at the end of this event, because it's taking time. There's ample amount of time for people to wake up and try to get unhooked. That said, I'm actually watching people also get very hooked in a very kind of following orders, top down sort of way. And
did you see Danny Katz's video about that this morning?
No, I did not.
I linked to it on Facebook because it was so important. Like, basically, and I was just basically the amount of people that are supposed to be free thinkers or some way rebellious or outside the system or counterculture that are just following orders without question, which she says, and she's right to say it's different than thinking about something and with having thought clearly about it, deciding that, okay, I'm going to continue about my life. I'm going to practice a little extra precautions because there might be something, but that's different than just going whole hog into like other people are now dangerous to me and the government says so. But she was talking about that, and I kind of linked to her video with the thing it made me think of is like, I love when I hear little kids say, "You're not the boss of me," and it's too bad we don't hear more adults saying that right now. Right? There's some adults I know who could stand to figure out that you're not the boss of me, and start deploying that a little more often. So I linked to that. I also am really both not surprised, but also very increasingly disheartened at the number of people in my other communities, that being the underground dance music community and the gymnastics community, that are just completely buying all of this bullshit hook, line, and sinker, and are just totally like, do what you're told, stay. Literally, there's like a meme going around in the techno world that says, stay the fuck inside, or go the fuck home, or something like that. And the whole gymnastics world is just like, oh, everybody, stay inside and do what you're told. And I'm just like, I'm not saying we should be rebellious just for the sake of being rebellious, or that we shouldn't be smart in our decisions, but just to like, to go, like, they have created this term social distancing and deployed it to the point where it's the term you hear more often than any other in the course of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's become the new religion, social distancing.
I agree. It's terrible. It's dehumanizing. It's 1984. This is Winston Smith trying to cop a feel somewhere outside of the prying eyes of all the surveillance systems and cameras. I mean, that's kind of where we're at this point. And we're starting to see some very interesting, the other thing that's going on here is like we're watching the balkanization of states in the United States. Different states are having different responses. It's like the United States is kind of being broken up. Now, some of the states are quite uniform, and some aren't. So I'll give you a couple of instances which just crossed my screen here. Apparently, Vermont is ordering that Walmart and Target only sell essential items. Okay, wrap your head around that, whatever that means. I'm sure they have a list. So, the heavy hand of the government, the state government of Vermont, orders Target and Walmart to sell essential items. Conversely, the state of Texas is now going to allow people to congregate in churches. How about that?
I like that.
So that's Greg Abbott, and it's coming from the Houston Chronicle. And I bet you they got some heat from the Masons, because the Masons have to gather. The Masons have to have their ceremonies, their rites. Right. So they're complaining. So Abbott's probably saying, well, let's just go across the board. So we're watching different responses from different states, and the balkanization of the United States is taking place before our very eyes. I was watching a video of from Compton, and it was on, I think, Live Leak or something like that. And it was a group of mostly black women and some kids, and they were having a party. Of course, there's no cars, so they're walking down the street, and they're kind of doing their thing. And then the cops show up, and the cops form a line, and they have batons, and they're forcing these people. And this is all just recent, like last day or two, forcing these people back. And I'm watching. It's like, why don't you just, first of all, why aren't the cops wearing like masks and gloves and goggles? Apparently, they have absolutely no concern for coronavirus because they're not geared up, right? So what's up with that? Secondly, why can't you just let them have their party? I mean, so what? They're out on the street. So what? They're not looting. They're not pillaging. It's just like, let them have their thing. But no, they can't do that. And then I read the comments, and the comments were so pro police. It blew my mind. Oh, they oh, look at the restraint they showed, and oh, good for them, and oh my God, they're putting they're being put in a dangerous
in 2 weeks
situation.
we've gone from police are the oppressors of the Black community to police are the heroes because they're oppressing the Black community.
Well, I don't know if those comments were coming from the Black community. I don't know that.
Right, but even like, think about how many white SJWs we have that are really always out there ready to say that there's, police brutality is racist in its nature. It's not. Police brutality is police brutality for everybody. You know what I mean? But all of a sudden, it's interesting how they've moved. It's kind of like we're back to Blue Lives Matter now, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's it is, this worship of authority and being loved. Like, I was listening to Crystal Ball on the Hill this morning, talking about how this weird obsession with Andrew Cuomo right now, where people, who are generally thought to be left-leaning and are always speaking out against authoritarianism, are so into Andrew Cuomo right now. They've created T-shirts that say "Govern Me, Daddy." Right? It's just like this worship of authority and being told what to do.
Yep.
That's what that is that you're talking about. It's like people like they love watching somebody tell somebody else what to do and watching that person fold to it. It's like watching porn. It's like it's like you're.
Oh man, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, it's like watching somebody submit. Like they do in people who like nasty porn and shit like that, right? Like,
you mean like Andrew Cuomo with his pierced nipples?
I heard there's some issue about his nipples, but I'm not clear on what that story is. So
he looks like he's pierced on both nipples.
That's funny. How bullshit do you think this scenario is, where Chris Cuomo asks him one day, "Are you running for president?" And you're being so presidential with this coronavirus response, and then the next day Fredo has a coronavirus. What is that?
Coronavirus is the new kind of trendy celebrity thing.
It's like the ice bucket challenge or something.
Yeah, the coronavirus challenge. I mean, you're nobody unless you have coronavirus.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Cuomo piece is really interesting. It gets into some astrology.
Yeah.
Because we're headed towards the shift of the ascending plane of the moon into Gemini. So we're dealing with brothers, right? And Gemini rules siblings. So we can kind of see that coming at us from the near horizon. But it's interesting how they've been positioning Andrew Cuomo to be essentially the guy who's probably going to take Joe Biden's place on the ticket if we even have an election.
Yeah.
Speaking of, there's a lot of fracturing going on even in the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. Like you can see, like Devin Nunes is starting to break from Trump.
Oh, I haven't been paying that close attention. What's happening?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of brand new. I mean, he basically, I'll read this. California Congressman Devin Nunes, who has for weeks been contradicting public health experts on the coronavirus response, said Tuesday he thinks it's way overkill for his state to cancel school through the end of the semester because of the pandemic. He also suggested schools and the economy could return to normal in as little as 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Even though the Trump administration has extended its social distancing guidelines through the end of April. His remarks came just hours after President Trump specifically warned that the next 2 weeks could be very, very painful for the country. Now, this is a total Trump move, by the way, because about 3 weeks ago, he's saying it's the flu. We'll get over it. We'll get through it. And now he's comparing it to the Black Plague.
Yeah.
And this is what Trump does. And by the way, if you've read or are familiar with The Art of the Deal that was associated with Trump, he didn't write that book, by the way. He had a co-writer, ghostwriter. Anyway, his way of doing business is to throw a grenade into the room.
Yeah.
And watch what happens after that. And be able to see who you're dealing with, right? Because people will reveal themselves in times of moments of panic and crisis. And so what we're in a sense watching is one giant grenade thrown into the middle of the room. But the difference here is that it's global. It's not just in the United States. And this is actually kind of a big story in that regard. But he will play this. He will play this like the art of the deal and try to capitalize, of course, on the chaos and the stress and probably the ensuing disorder that we may be staring down fairly quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been interesting to watch it, Devin. But I have to say I agree with Devin Nunes, right? Like I was looking at a video about Sweden the other day, and
they're hanging out.
Sweden has decided to try a different tactic, and what they're doing is they're just asking people who are elderly or obviously sick, right, to stay home, right? Like to stay home, and everybody else go about your business, do the economy, go to work, go do your daily activities. The only restriction they've put in is that there can't be gatherings of 50 or more, right? And there can't be in restaurants. Everyone in the restaurant has to be seated. There can't be like layers of people at the bar standing six, so that you're right in someone's face. But that they've decided to go ahead and let everybody develop herd immunity, right?
Yeah.
And so far they have some of the lowest numbers, both of cases reported and of deaths. Right, so it's kind of interesting. They're just going a total different way. And then there was another country I heard that is just not. Someone was telling me that in Uzbekistan, it's illegal.
Belarus.
Or somewhere it's illegal to talk about it. You're not even allowed to talk about coronavirus.
Well, Belarus has basically said, "Screw this."
I saw they were playing football still.
They're playing soccer in Belarus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because
Krimi told me it was Uzbekistan. You're not allowed to talk about the coronavirus or any other things associated with it because it's complete nonsense. Yeah.
The USA is buried somewhere in Belarus. It's true because USA is in the word Belarus. This is the Sweden thing is where's Bernie Sanders when you need him? The Mr. Sweden lover, right? He's into Sweden. Yeah. He's not around. Where are all those people? Where did they go, by the way? Like, where did Bernie Sanders go? Where did Liz Warren go? Where the hell is Michael Bloomberg?
Right.
Here was a guy you could not see him for a month, and now he's like disappearing man, the invisible man.
I had this thought. I guess it was yesterday. Was it yesterday or today? That notice how the coronavirus amped up as Michael Bloomberg's campaign obviously failed. Right. Yeah. It left me wondering if Michael Bloomberg had succeeded, if this would have been deployed the way it has been. Right. Like,
maybe.
If you look at chart his decline and the rise of the coronavirus, and you will see that there was a definite shift. And Michael Bloomberg, he speaks highly of Xi Jinping, and, he's into all sorts of shit with China and whatnot, but you're right. Everybody's gone, right? You get a few statements. I guess Bernie Sanders is doing like town halls and has deployed his his mailing list for his campaign to help people raise money for charities, and that's all great, right? But I mean, Joe Biden is, it's embarrassing to watch the things he's saying from his basement. Bernie Sanders is not fighting at all, and turncoat Tulsi. I mean, you know me, I'm outside of the political system, but I wanted to like her. And not only did she just do a despicable thing, but the arrogance with which she did it and the way she looks like a different person. It's very interesting.
I never trusted her, right?
I never trust any politician, and while there were some things answered about her connections to CFR, there's never been things answered about her connections to CNP. But, I don't vote, and if they're there with any attention at all, there's something wrong with them, right?
She was always in kind of a weird trance-like state to me.
Yeah, when I would see her. This is an arrogant trance she's in now. The only time I've seen her look so arrogant was when she was going off on Kamala Harris, and now she's has that same look on her face when she's talking to people like Jimmy Dore, who was her friends and supported her. Now she's like arrogant towards. It's very interesting.
The thing that's fascinating about Tulsi Gabbard's astrological chart is it's almost split in two. She has like one of the most distinct kinds of it's like a seesaw chart, right? Mm-hmm. So on the one side of her chart, she's got a ton of Libra. On the other side of her chart, she's got a ton of Aries. So if there's any like real true astrological indication of a split personality or somebody who has like potentially severe amount of trauma, that chart is probably the most prototypical version of that. I'll tell you who else had a very extreme seesaw chart was Whitney Houston.
Oh, wow.
And we know kind of the story behind Whitney. Yep. So I think I don't know, man. I just think that Tulsi is like I think she's like a Manchurian candidate, or kind of a.
You could be right. I mean, she grew up in a cult, and she has some connection to this thing called the Human Potential Movement. And I've even heard that, how she always talks about that gray strip in her hair as that she got it when she was serving in Iraq, and she decided to keep it as sort of a memorial to all that. I've heard that that's something that the women in that cult wear.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Like her Cruella de Vil stripe, you know what I mean?
Oh, that's a good analogy. Yeah. Well, I to this day I will savor her takedown of
it's
Kamala
great.
Harris.
We have to evaluate people on, like, when they do something good, we appreciate it, and when they do something bad, we say that too, and so that's what it is. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What else? You want to talk about Bill Gates?
Let's do the Bill Gates, and then we'll get into the thing that was the real impetus for this. So I watched this. Obviously the Bill Gates sniff and fingerprint and all that is all over all of this, right?
Yeah.
But I watched a video yesterday by Really Graceful, and I'll link to it in the description box below. Also, if Jimmy Dore posts today's live stream, I'll link to that. Sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes after the live stream is done, he puts it behind his paywall for his patrons. But I watched this video from Really Graceful, who I don't normally listen to because I find the way she talks to be a little annoying, she's narrating a Disney film while she's telling us about all this stuff. But she does do a really good job. I just find that voice irritating.
Yeah, she's got some good video skills. If she's the one doing that stuff,
great.
She's got really good video skills.
Great skills, but it's something about that tone of voice that's narrating them doesn't generally work for me. But this was not a very long video, and I thought it was really well done. It was about what Bill Gates was doing 10 years before Microsoft. And it sort of chronicled him from the time he was a kid, who his family was from the time he was a kid till he became famous as, head of Microsoft. And one of the things that she brought up, and I want people to keep this in mind as we're watching what he's deployed here with Event 201, which I think we are in, and I'll explain that in a second. But basically, one of the things he did is they got a very early kind of computer for the wealthy school he went to as a kid. And he and his partner, Paul Allen, who was much older, started doing all this computer stuff there. But he actually created one of the first computer viruses, right? Setting up the ability for him to then create an antivirus product or a solution for that. So while he was still in high school or junior high school or whatever it was, he had his first instance of problem reaction solution. He created a virus, and then he came up with the solution for it. So we are all now Bill Gates's computer project. He has created a virus that he has deployed through the system, right? And now he is the person that people are looking to come up with the solution to the problem, right? And, he is not a medical doctor. He knows nothing about health or nutrition. He is a computer programmer. And I want people to keep that in mind. I know that our audience...
And he's barely a computer programmer, by the way.
Barely. He steals ideas from other people.
Yeah.
Right? Or he does things like create viruses or create products that are then selling you up the river in terms of your privacy and your control over your own machine and stuff like that, which is exactly what he's doing here. So, obviously our listeners know this, right? But it's sort of a little different perspective, right? He created one of the first computer viruses. Now, we all know that there is this Event 201 thing, right? I think we're still in it. If people remember back, I think that's what this is. If people remember back when Sandy Hook happened, Sophia Smallstorm, which I need to give her a call and find out what her thoughts on this are because she's always fascinating. But she made a video called Sandy Hook in 3, 4, and 5 dimensions, right? Where she kind of went out to all the various levels of abstraction and looked at it. And one of the things she talked about was having found, that this was a capstone event where it wasn't just whatever it wasn't just the drill of what went on at the school, but the media response and the public response was part of the drill. So for many months afterwards, we were still in the drill. It wasn't just that day. The drill went on it was funded to go on for like a year. There was another guy who's disappeared named Professor Doom, who also looked the same, and he had like a complementary set of information that was a little different, where he was calling it a national elite level exercise, but basically it was like a different intelligence agency's set of rules and paperwork about the same event. There was multiple agencies involved, right? And so there's this event 201. First, Bill Gates talks about this problem all the way back in 2015, that this coronavirus thing is going to happen. Then in the fall of 2019, there's something called an event 201 simulation in the Wuhan Military Olympics. And this thing, it's supposed, people are thinking of it as just that, right? Well, what if it was really the deploying of the virus, and whether that virus be an actual physical illness or just literally a computer virus? Because think, all this information and fear about it is being spread through our computers, just like the original virus he created back in the 60s or 70s at his school in Seattle, right? And now it's like, okay, so people are now he's going to have to create a product to the solution. But if this is like those capstone exercises, the most important part of the exercise is to gauge the reaction of both the media and the public, right? To see what kind of solutions they'll go for, to see what you can get people to believe, all of that kind of stuff. So I don't think, I don't think it was like, these drills are not just single day drills like when we used to have fire drills in school, right? These are drills that go on and that include the media, both media that are in on it and media that aren't aware of that this is an extensive drill that is gauging their reaction to it, right? Everything is happening at once. It's not totally fake or totally real. It's being created. Some people know that, others don't. And the interaction of that interplay between fake and real is where all the important data is collected and where all the control is deployed.
Well, isn't that what Pompeo said when he was up there at the presser, that this is what this was not a drill, but what did he say? An exercise that's gone live.
He said that?
Oh yeah.
I didn't hear that.
Oh yeah. And Trump, under his breath, says, "I wish you would have told me."
Huh?
It was right there in front of everybody.
I'll have to go find that. Interesting. Well, I love it. I'll have to check that out. I love when Trump says these things under his breath, like the Department of Deep State and whatever, and all that jazz. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think like you sent me this great video today that was like a compilation of citizen journalists. Yep. And I think that like, it's one of those things, like just when we think that they can't hoax us, they find a different way to hoax us, right? And if you watch this set of videos, it's like, fuck, we're being very careful here because we know there's a problem when everybody believes everything, and then when everybody thinks everything is a hoax, it's like, the pendulum swings too far to the other side. So people like us try to stay centered. But after watching that video you sent me today, and I'll include the link to that under here as well, like I was like, man, is this like a fucking total hoax, right? Tell people about the video real quick, and then we'll go on to the next.
Well, so it was compiled by this woman named Dana Ashley. And what's interesting is Dana Ashley and Really Graceful are both redheaded. And this gets into this whole redhead thing. We
talked about it before, the redheads.
Yeah, no, so that's just a notice, right? So she put together this compilation about a number of different citizen journalists, including Jason Goodman, and they're essentially going to all these different hospitals, and nobody's there. I mean, nobody's there. And meanwhile, the mainstream news is reporting that, what is it, the Hillhaven or Ellencrest, or that Elmhurst, that, my God, you would think it was Auschwitz by how they were talking about it. They're carting bodies out of there right and left into the freezer that's hooked up to the truck, and they got tents, and it's a MASH unit, and you go down there and there's nothing happening.
There was no one there at all.
No, there's nothing happening at all. And then CBS has footage theoretically from that hospital. And the footage is from Italy. Theoretically, it's the same footage.
2 weeks ago from Italy, right?
Right, and who even knows that footage is actually from Italy? Like, we don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, for all we know, that could have been a TV station somewhere in the UK. Well, production, I mean, it's crazy.
What's weird about it, so there was also the part where they're talking to the ambulance driver in New York City, and he's saying, how many have you seen with the coronavirus? Like hundreds? He's like, maybe 3. He's like, and how do you know they have coronavirus? He's like, well, it's just a guess. So he's like, of all the people that he's dealt with, only 3 he guesses might have it. So there's that. But then there was also the part where it was fucking so weird. The guy goes and talks to the lady at the hospital that's empty. And she says, we're dealing with lines and lines of patients. And he's like, what are you talking about? There's nobody here. She's like, nope, there's lines of people waiting. So it's like, okay, is this like a level of mind control that is just unbelievable? Or are you talking
about the urgent care in Hawaii?
Yeah. Right.
Well, that's completely like a break with reality. That's so insane.
So is it that though, or is it this kind of thing where there's a drill going on and she's been told to like, this is her line when the reporter asks her a question, right?
But then she gets really pissed off and then hits the guy with his cell phone, and a cop is standing right there. Like, she has no regard for the cop at that point.
Yeah.
And of course, the cops only do something when you're actually defending yourself, right? So yeah, I mean, there's somebody down in LA, and they're talking to people at Cedars-Sinai. There's nobody there. There are people. There's that gal. I think she's from like Ireland or Scotland. She goes into one of the tents where they're supposed to be working, and there's nobody there in the tent. And it's like, how long can they go on with this thing? So here's what I think is happening. All right. I think that these hospitals are basically bleeding cash right now because they can't see people unless they're coronavirus people. All the elective surgeries have been canceled. All of them. And that's anything from having something to do with cancer to having some, plastic surgery done or what. Can't do it, right? So they're losing money right and left. This is going to be the new story, is what's happening economically with these hospitals. And they're going to start to like 40% work staff because there's no use for them. So here's what I think is going to happen. These hospitals are going to start to go belly up. I mean, they're just like any other business that's kind of shut down. And for all intents and purposes, unless you're being wheeled in there for coronavirus or some pre-existing condition and maybe you got a flu or something, that hospital's not seeing anybody.
Do you think this is part of what you were talking about this morning about Trump becoming FDR? So this is about nationalization of hospitals? Okay.
Yes. That's where this is going because the hospitals are going to need to be bailed out. And who's going to bail them out? Trump. So then who's going to run the hospitals and the entire medical system?
The government.
Trump and the government. They've already got their hooks into private industry. And today on my show, which you mentioned, it's like Trump has set himself up now to be the new FDR.
Yeah.
And even astrologically, there's some correspondence to that. And I looked at that today. It's Uranus and Taurus.
Yeah.
Same position. Few degrees off, right? So Trump is aligning himself to be the new FDR. We're going to have people that are going to be out of work and they're going to need jobs. So what's going to be the new job force is going to be the green economy. And now they're going to have solar, they're going to have renewables. And guess what? Trump is going to outflank the left on this.
Yeah. Well, he already is. He went further. The Republicans went further to the left in the bailout than the Democrats were only concerned with the corporate aspect of it. In terms of the people, even though it's, still sort of fake in nature, they outlefted the left. That was something Jimmy Dore was talking about too.
Right. And they're going to continue to do that. And then when the power gets turned back on or people can go back out, whatever, it's going to be like, oh, you want jobs? Well, guess what? We're going to have phase 4. The phase 4 will be the infrastructure bill. And he'll come in and people will go to work on solar farms or, they're basically going to be building the infrastructure for the new WPA, which is going to be the green cities and the Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 program.
Yeah.
So he's going to out. Now that Trump doesn't care, as long as he controls the funds, the purse strings, the contracts, the hires, he doesn't care what it is. And so if he does the same thing with the hospitals and medical, he's going to out left the left, and he's going to nationalize medicine because the government will run everything.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have to bail out all these hospitals, and who knows where the insurance companies are going to show up. So Trump will have done three things. He'll have gotten his hooks into private industry with the bailouts, but we know that that's going to happen. The Treasury Department is going to do deals. He'll have his hooks in the new green economy and infrastructure, and have his hooks into the medical system. And now all of a sudden, he's a lot more like Bernie Sanders than Bernie Sanders, even though he's not, overtly saying that.
You think there's some Steve Bannon influence here, right? Like, because Steve Bannon, I watched one of those Monk debates with Steve Bannon, and I can't remember who else, but they were debating, like, it was basically like it was from like last year sometime, that populism is rising, and is it going to be Trumpism or Democratic socialism? And so you think that Trump is doing the sort of thesis, antithesis, synthesis, and delivering sort of a combination of those two, and that okay.
Yeah, and the other thing that I wanted to bring up, because you were talking about Mike Bloomberg and like his kind of role in this. Coronavirus is covering a lot of stuff right now. A lot of stuff. Like, one of the things that's going on in England is this whole thing with Brexit. And all of a sudden now Brexit's taking a deep backseat to coronavirus. Who knows what they're doing with Brexit? I don't think Brexit will ever mean shit to the English. But the other thing too is that very quietly, Queen Elizabeth has essentially left.
I heard that. Right? Yeah,
she's left, and that means that Prince William is getting ready to ascend the throne.
He's a devious.
He's getting ready to become the King of England.
Yeah, I don't like him.
I think he could be the Antichrist. Actually,
yeah, I don't like him at all. There's something when I look at him. I don't care for him at all.
He's got all kinds of prophecies scribbled across his legacy at this point. And, the idea is that, Europe is also forming a standing army.
Yeah.
And
what else I heard? Sorry, go ahead.
But he would be the commander of the European Standing Army, by the way. Go ahead.
I agree with you about that. That the population of migrants in Europe would be the first to get one of Bill Gates's kind of tracking tattoos about the coronavirus.
Oh, of course.
Right.
Yep.
So that would be, like part of the reason that population was encouraged, because, you can come and they're going to experience. I thought that was kind of interesting and sick. Yeah.
Do you have the ability for me to do a screen share?
Yeah, I'm going to make you co-host, and let's see.
Since we're on the Bill Gates topic, I'll show you the latest breaking from Bill Gates.
You should be able to do screen share. Go ahead.
So here he is, and the headline is Bill Gates calls for complete national shutdown. Microsoft founder Bill Gates has called for a nationwide shutdown in an effort to combat the spread of the Wuhan coronavirus. Why can't somebody from the military just fly over his fucking house and hit it with, like a air-to-ground missile, and just have kind of a rogue moment or something like that? I mean, can we just get rid of this guy?
So this guy said he called for three things: a nationwide shutdown, a tracking system to see who's been tested and who's had it and blah, 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 and a vaccine. This is his fucking wet dream. He is living in a fantasy beyond his wildest imagination right now. And I just another thing that really Graceful pointed out in the video is she doesn't recall having voted for him into any of these positions to make decisions for people. Like, this man makes me ill, and I feel the same way about him that I do about George Soros. I don't want to hear about him. I don't want anything that they say or do affecting my reality. I don't vote for anybody, but nobody voted for them, and none of them, he is not a doctor, a health person, or has anything any reason why he should be speaking publicly about what needs to happen because of a virus, right? He's just, I mean, I can't even tell you how my stomach turns when I look at him.
I mean, okay, so this gets back to Kurosawa. Like, has Bill Gates evolved, or was he always evil? I believe he's always been evil.
Yeah, you look at the pictures of him when he was a little kid in that video. He looks like one of those terror child, types.
But what he is now is he's become like a James Bond villain.
Yeah,
that wants to basically launch a plague on the entire world, and then have the so-called remedy for the plague, and then have the so-called enslavement software for the very same. He's like a Bond villain now.
He's treating us all like we're in his computer. Yeah.
Look at some of these comments. This is Breitbart. Here's another globalist medical expert. In reality, a self-serving billionaire who suddenly cares about the safety of the country, while he and his foundation are funding the construction of mosques all over the place. Well, maybe that's true. Got a lot of comments, a lot of likes there. He has to ride out the mess he helped create without the full benefits of the U.S. government, run by one of his comrades. F you, Bill Gates. How's that stupid toilet you've been spending your fortune on? Bill Gates wants to implement vaccine with biometric ID to track everyone. Look up ID 2020. Bill Gates is a corrupt deviant, a baby butcher, a race baiter, a gun grabber, and a full-bore communist.
Yeah.
Just like the rest of the leftist globalist trash.
Yeah.
I mean, these people know what's up.
Yeah.
They know that this guy, and there are plenty of other Bill Gates types on the planet, but right now he's out front because he's been chosen to play this Dr. Evil role. And the sooner he goes away, the better off we're going to be. You never notice that nothing ever really bad happens to the so-called bad people?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Kissinger,
with the exception of maybe Harvey
Weinstein.
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, Kissinger, Soros, all those kinds of people, right? Like Bill Gates, these people never have like any of the terrible afflictions that average people have. Never. They have that look that normal people don't look like the way they look. But yeah, whatever it is, it's weird, right? Why do they all look like that? And what's weird? I think we're in I'm Mandela affected about Bill Gates, because in the reality that I come from, that thing that's his wife now did not used to be his wife.
Oh, I know, right? I mean, all these guys are sporting these, these.
Dude looks like a lady.
Adam's Apple sporting, tranny man.
Weird, right? But this, I remember seeing Melinda Gates on Oprah's couch when they first started giving computers to the kids in Africa. And she was a very petite, blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman. She
was like, kind of mousy in some ways.
It's not the same person. It's
not the same person.
It's not. So I don't know if this is Mandela affected or what is going on here. But I remember clearly looking at a petite little pixie type Melinda Gates. I know.
I remember that too.
Couch. Yeah.
Right. And now this woman's got the neck of a linebacker. Are you kidding me?
It's just weird. Like, I mean, I'm just like, what the fuck? Yeah. It doesn't even make any sense. Like in their system in any way.
Okay. Right. I just flipped something to my head now. I want to lay it on you. See what you think. All okay. Right. So apparently Planned Parenthoods are closed. Mm-hmm. Like that's an elective surgery. You can't have an abortion now.
Right.
Transgender operations can't happen now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you think that the left is so pissed off over the fact that they can't have the abortion claim? I mean, let's be clear, people on the right want them to in some ways, some circles. Do you think that they're so pissed off about that now? And they're so pissed off at Trump, but mostly about these two things, that they're going to put locks on basketball hoops in Chicago and throw dirt in skate parks. I mean, you've seen that stuff, right?
No.
Well, yeah. So now this is the new thing. Like in Chicago, they have literally pieces of boards locked onto basketball hoops so you can't go outside and play basketball. In some areas, they've actually taken the hoops down. skate parks have piles and piles of dirt in them. So now people can't even go out and recreate. And do you think that this is in some ways like a big FU? It's like, okay, you
Oh,
took away our.
because they can't get abortions, so now they're going to be forced to recreate. Now they're not allowed to recreate because.
That's right. Exactly. It's sort of like, okay, you're playing that card. We're going to play this card now. Like this is the other thing. There's like a crossfire going on. Go ahead.
I saw a piece on Vice that was talking about how unfair this coronavirus situation is to people who are waiting for transgender operations. That this has put their needs to the back of the line. And I was just like, I mean, it was Vice, so it's not The Onion. If I hadn't seen who it was from, I would have like, okay. I just that really like that the coronavirus is an affront to transgender rights. I was just like, okay, So it is interesting to watch the way this is stretched.
And who's been one of the hardest, toughest people around the state and lockdown, and even the example that I gave, which was boarding up the basketball hoops. It's J.B. Pritzker from Illinois, and J.B. Pritzker brother is Jennifer Pritzker, well, brother now sister, and the Pritzker family has been deeply invested in the trans economy, deeply invested.
Wow.
So now all of a sudden, the brakes have been put on a lot of their operations. So he's like, "Screw you! We're going to make sure that the hoops and Cabrini Green or whatever are now unusable, and we're going to just make life hell for everybody."
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And even California is pretty extreme in some ways. And Garcetti, what's up with your guy down there? He's starting to shut off water and power.
Oh, that was cool. When I heard that, I'm like, that is just mean. That when that came out, that they were going to start shutting off water and power to people who were not listening to the "don't go to work" stuff, right? I was like, that's just mean. Like, what? It's just gross. You know what I mean? Like, you've already passed lots of restrictions. If a person owns a business and they want to go in there by themselves, you know what I mean? Like, you're already telling people not to go. So I just think it's a little power move. It's a little Mussolini, a little Napoleon kind of like, little man tactic. You know what I mean? Neener, like that. I just don't like it. You know what I mean? Like I don't like that at all. Here things are pretty calm. People are, behaving in a civil manner. You can, go out and pick up your food at restaurants. Bars are delivering cocktails to people and whatever. So, people are making the best of it. And I haven't seen anybody behaving in a way that I find, distasteful, at least when I'm out in public. But I do think that the people in charge, the bosses of us, are behaving in very distasteful ways. And I don't like that. So, yeah. So I think we should take people to the cherry on top now. What do you think?
Well, I just want to ask you one question before we get there.
Yeah.
What do you think the blowback for somebody like Garcetti will be if and when the dust settles on this thing and it's over? Because I think that there are going to be some political careers that are going to be absolutely in tatters when this is all said and done. And he would be one of them, by the way. And if I were him, I would actually be very, very cautious and aware of my movements post-coronavirus, because there are going to be a lot of very pissed off people, and there are going to be some very unforgiving people, especially if they find out that this thing has been, scammy. And I don't think they can allow that to happen. They're going to have to continue this or double down or go to war with Iran or something.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think one of the things that is going to happen is, because Los Angeles is very heavily based on like the service economy and restaurants and bars and hotels and things like that. There's a lot of small businesses here, and there's also a lot of like, so it wouldn't be considered a mom and pop, but like it's like a restaurant group that owns like 10 restaurants around the city, but it's not like a big chain like Chili's or Fridays or whatever, right? So these people are essentially small to medium-sized businesses, and they tend very far left, right? There's a lot of, gay people and minorities and working in that industry, which is great. It's wonderful. But these people are all people who have been staunchly on the left right, who've been staunchly pushing the social justice thing, and suddenly they're going to find their careers threatened, their livelihood threatened by the people that were their choice, right?
That's
So I
right.
think there's going to be a huge awakening to, I think you're going to start to see a huge shift in that, and it's interesting the way Trump may play this or whatever, but I think that this will bring, they're going to have to resort, if they want to keep the social justice narrative going, they're going to have to resort to further and further absurd ideas and hope that people buy it. But basically, this is an entertainment economy here that is generally left, and it's going to require a more free market, libertarian style of governing or lack of governing would be better, even to resurrect it to a point where people are going to be able to make the kind of livings that they were making just 3 or 4 weeks ago. I'm telling you right now, there are servers in Los Angeles that work at upscale casual to like high-end restaurants, servers and bartenders that are making upwards of $100,000 a year.
Oh, I believe it.
And they're not going to stand for a reduction of their lifestyle to $25,000 or $30,000. They're not going to, and they're very quickly going to start making their decisions based along economic lines rather than social justice lines.
Yep. Good observation. Yeah.
All right. So now to the dessert, guys. So I was just tooling through. John Rappoport has really been on fire during this. He has an article out almost every day. My feelings weren't hurt that he didn't respond to my request for an interview. I felt better when I found out he didn't respond to Greg Carlwood's either. So I think he's just pumping out articles every day and is figuring that's how his time is better spent right now. I mean, I think every time I open my email, there's an article there from him, and they're all good. And he's sort of, both explaining the nonsense of the virus, but also the way the mind control is working around it. But if you look into, he's been around a long time, and he's talked about a lot of different things over the course of his career. He's been a journalist for an awfully long time. He's worked for a lot of pop culture kind of outlets, a lot of more underground outlets, and then he's been doing his thing for a long time. But I was looking at him the other day, and for some reason, a few days prior to that, I had been looking at something related to Rudolph Steiner. Oh, because the Thomas Cohen, right? The Cohen videos about what a virus is. He's a Steiner student. Yeah. So I was looking at stuff like that. And I realized as I'm looking at John Rappoport that he looks like that picture that's so famous of Rudolph Steiner. So I go and I look and I'm like, oh my God, dude. And if you look at the sort of the broad expanse of both of those gentlemen's career, right? I started asking myself this question, dude, is this guy Rudolph Steiner? He looks like him. And if you look at the breadth, like the entire expanse of their work, they cover similar topics. Obviously, John Rappoport's is more modernized and with more, use of technology and internet and whatnot. But they both hit on medicine, philosophy, creativity, existing outside of a matrix, health. Steiner was into all sorts of health and agriculture things, right? That's not a great picture of him. There's
no, but it'll
do the job.
Yeah. So the other thing about Rappoport is that he definitely looks like a reptilian.
Yeah.
Like that is a reptile face. It looks like a dinosaur face, doesn't it? Like
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe he's a good reptile.
Well,
I've heard they're good reptiles.
So I looked at this and it made me start to think of when you did the thing with Jordan Peterson and Brother 12. And around the time that you did that, you and I had a private conversation, and we had talked about doing a show about it, but we never did, about my theory that what secret societies and all that stuff are really about the figuring out how to reincarnate into your next life without forgetting the information, the content of your previous life. And in some ways, being even able to steer what body you reincarnate into, right? And that's why we may be seeing so many of these celebrities and figures who you can find someone who looked just like them in history. So when I looked at John Rappoport and Rudolph Steiner, I called Robert, and you were kind of surprised. You took a look. But if you look at the contents of their work, he is heir apparent to Rudolph Steiner in a lot of ways. He is 81 years old, John Rappoport, right now. And if anybody saw him on video a few weeks ago, hosting the last hour of the Alex Jones show, or a few videos he's made recently, he looks about 60. Would you say so? He has aged incredibly well. I couldn't believe it when I saw he was 81. I thought maybe he was in his early 70s. He has something figured out about time and about health and about his stuff is all called like exit the matrix, power outside of the matrix, create outside of the matrix. So is this one of these, kind of time lords that we've talked about before? But what do you think about that? And did you have a chance to, you brought up, did you have a chance to sort of look at the charts between the two of them?
A little bit. I think that there were some similarities in some ways. Let me go back here. Steiner's a Pisces, and I think Rappoport is an Aries. So, I mean, hold on a second. I just want to get their faces together here so people might be able to see the significance.
There was another picture that I saw where I was just like, John Rappoport. Let me see if I can find the picture I was thinking of real fast.
The interesting thing about the two is they have very similar chins, and they have very similar eyebrows. So here we go. I put them together so people can actually
look at that one. So there's, I mean, even the outfit they're wearing right in these pictures, it's similar. The hairline is similar. The ears are similar. Okay.
The hairline is very similar. And the ears are similar. The nose is a little bit different. John's nose is a little more flared. Yeah. But the chins are kind of similar as well.
Look at this one. Hold on a second. Let me show you. Let's see this. Okay. Continue. Let me look at this picture right here of him. And then think of that. Look at that. This one of him.
Right there. That's the one. That's probably the one that's really telling.
That's the closest. And then if you look at this picture right here, this is him just a few weeks ago. He is 81 years old, right? And he's just, he looks, this is a recent picture of him from 2014. So he would have been 75, or if his face looks a little distorted. But he actually looks like Steiner there, right? He doesn't look his age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Here's a pic, it's just kind of interesting. It's not exact, but if you people who are familiar with Steiner and like the variety of things that he sort of covered in his sort of protocols for life and what he was sort of suggesting, whatever. And then you look at the entirety of John Rappoport's work, it's pretty interesting. You know what I mean? What would be the sort of connections between the two astrologically? Did you find any?
Well, let me just take it. I've been so busy with doing readings with people, just trying to stay afloat and keep on track with my own stuff. Let me just do it real fast here. So John Rappoport, do quick. Rappoport was born, April 16th. He's born the same year as my mother, 1938. So he's 81 years of age. And let me just do a quick kind of solar chart for him. See what he's got. 1938. Let's see. So he's an Aries. We know that. And hold on.
When you hear his voice, though, when you hear him speaking and the clarity, I just was, listening to him with Catherine Austin Fitz a few weeks ago. Like, I can't think of anyone I know that's I can think of one person I know that's that age that speaks, that is that sort of still totally present, at every moment,
Yeah. So he's an abundance of planets. Well, interesting. He's got Saturn in Aries, Sun in Aries. They're not really conjunct, but usually Sun-Saturn aspects tend to have longevity built into them. He has a lot of Taurus in his chart. He has a Mars-Uranus conjunction quite wide in Taurus. He has Venus in Taurus. He has Mercury in Taurus, which is retrograde and kind of, looking backwards and to the past. But he's heavily Taurus and heavily kind of heavy Aries. So Earth, fire, and Moon in Scorpio, which is again kind of regenerative. Let me look at the Steiner chart really quickly.
Look at this part. This picture of him. This is him last week. That's an 81-year-old man there on the right of my screen. That is him last week talking about the Chinese virus. Yeah. Wow.
So maybe instead of reincarnating, maybe he actually is Rudolph Steiner.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, there. I guess if Bill Gates can have a different wife that has the same name than he used to have, that he could be. It's just this. There's this resonance, this similarity. You know what I mean? And we were talking with Sonia yesterday. We recorded a show with Sonia about people. The lifespan that humans seem to have now and that people believe is the normal lifespan is not enough time to actually learn enough things to understand how
absolutely
it really works.
It's not enough. It's not enough.
It's not enough. And someone like Steiner had, really laid out all of this information and if he was able to really roll that into something to be able to extend his life far enough that he, if we're looking at a 100-plus-year-old person here, right? Who, if you look at the contents of like some of these programs he's created, like Power Outside the Matrix and stuff, there's so much interesting stuff in there. He has lived a life long enough to really understand what is going on here and how this works, to the point where it's like he's seen this all before, right? Like when you get to 65 or 70, like people think that's old, but you've really not, you're just starting to figure some things out, right? So if he were Rudolph Steiner, then it would certainly explain his clarity in understanding all of these things that are going on and why he doesn't seem panicked about it. Because he's lived long enough to develop the wisdom and to understand what it is that's going on. And if the things that Rudolph Steiner suggested truly work, then he could be evidence of that, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And not only that, but actually live through it, not just understand on some philosophical level,
right?
like
Live it,
cycles. Yeah. So he has. Okay, so here's what I would say. So he has Mercury, which is of course connected to communication and thinking, and
Rosie.
Hi,
Rosie. Olivia was here earlier. She was being a pain in the butt, but she's gone.
So he has Mercury at 4 degrees Taurus. And Steiner has Mars and Pluto at 5 and 7 Taurus. So perhaps, which is a very vital kind of aspect, by the way, the Mars-Pluto conjunction would give Rudolph Steiner an incredible amount of vitality. And not only that, but both Mars and Pluto are in trine with Saturn in a very tight orb, Saturn at 6, Pluto at 7, Mars at 5 in Virgo. So not only is it vitality, but there's longevity in that aspect, like really powerful longevity. But Rappoport's Mercury is conjunct the Mars Pluto conjunction in Steiner's chart, and it's retrograde, so it's looking backwards. So does that mean that he could theoretically tap into those aspects that were there in Rudolph Steiner's chart? I mean, quite possibly, in a very kind of collective unconscious sort of way. And if there really is no time, then yeah, why not? I mean, he could be having kind of this entangled sort of moment with Rudolph Steiner, and he might even know about it. The other thing is that he's got his Venus at 18 Aquarius, and I think John has Jupiter at 10 Aquarius. Oh no, that's 10 Aries. That's 25. Now, really, I think it's going to boil down to this Mercury in his chart conjuncting Steiner's Mars Pluto, and that's an area of astrology that I don't think a lot of astrologers dare to tread. That through various aspects we can tap into various people. But I do feel that because I always had an affinity for like William Blake and Bruce Lee and Jimi Hendrix, and I have Jupiter and Sagittarius, and so my Jupiter is very close to William Blake's birthday, his sun sign. So I think that we resonate on an astrological level with people, but perhaps there's even this ability to tap into other individuals that have similar aspects and tap into their code or their essence in some ways from that incarnation. And maybe this is what Rappoport is doing. Or maybe he's just Rudolph Steiner. Who knows?
Right. I don't know which story I like better, that he's the reincarnation or that he is, right? Or, but I just, that one, when you're just sitting there on the toilet looking at your phone, tooling through things, and you have that moment of like, what the fuck?
Right. Yeah, right. I mean, I guess if we're still here in about 10 years and John Rappoport looks the same, I think we can basically make the case that he is Rudolph Steiner.
All right. And you know what else I think, dude? I think they created Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer to distract people from Rudolph Steiner. Because when you type in Rudolph on the Google search, the first, like you're typing in Rudolph, and instead of Rudolph, you'd think Steiner would be the most famous one, right? But instead we're treated to pages, we're treated to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer first, right? So.
Right. Exactly. Just Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Right, just like I think that like the reason Elon Musk calls his car Tesla is to distract people from being able to find information on the real Tesla, right? People who are just coming online now, right? Like young kids. Like my nephew is 6. He's obsessed with Tesla cars, but nobody tells him who Tesla really is. He thinks the Tesla is a car.
Oh, interesting.
Right, and I think that matters in the age of search engine optimization, right? So, and if time doesn't exist, then Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is a new invention, right?
And so Rosie, if you mention Rosie, people think of Rosie the Riveter. No, you'd have to be ancient to remember Rosie the Riveter.
Where's Jasper tonight? It's all about Rosie and that tail.
Jasper has he's spent a lot of time in his cat bed lately. I've been a little concerned about Jasper, but he gets up and he eats. And so I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah, I've been, so I think that alternative media cats everywhere have taken, some inspiration from, what's Nathan's cat's name? He has a cat, and Jasper, of course, from you. Olivia has been interested for the past few weeks in making an appearance.
Nathan's cat could just as easily be a stuffed animal, though.
It doesn't ever move. Yeah. But
Doshi.
That's
Doshi.
Right. I'm not that into his. I haven't watched him in a long time, but to me, it just never got anywhere. It was very clickbaity. But Jasper and Doshi are famous alternative media cats, and all of a sudden, in the last week or two, Olivia wants to be on almost every show I've done, or in every nutrition consultation I've done, or whatever. But she's acting a little weird lately too. But she's still eating her and doing her thing. Like she's licking herself constantly and losing some hair and. I can't figure out what's happening with her and whatnot, but she seems to want to be on camera.
The cat's out of the bag.
Yeah.
So.
All right. I think we mashed the Matrix pretty good. What do you think?
We mashed hard tonight.
Mashed it hard. Rosie thinks so. All right. Well, that will kind of wrap it up for us then. Robert, tell people what's going on in your world so that they can come over and pay some attention to you.
Oh, boy, there's a lot going on. I've been doing a lot of readings lately, and they've been great. I've been loving the coronavirus vibration to do readings because I'm kind of going into nooks and crannies and crevices with people's charts and really trying to extract like who they are, where they could be. And, I'll give you just a quick example. Yesterday I had a reading with a really cool woman who lives up in Michigan, and she's a body worker, and she can't do body work anymore. So what is she going to do? And I had a bit of a conversation with her, and we talked about her husband, and he does a lot of welding and a very handy guy. And I said, has he ever thought about making a sword? And she said, oh, my God, you won't believe this, but we watched the entire series of Forged in Fire. I'm like, really? Oh, that's interesting. And Forged in Fire is about these guys that make these swords. and they use them at like Ren fairs or sell them for huge amounts of money. And I said, isn't that interesting? So I got into this idea, like, well, what would happen if he set up a shop and was here at home, and then you guys could figure out how to make swords, not just ceremonial swords, but you live in Upper Michigan or Michigan, and in Upper Michigan, how about a sword that can, really whack the vegetation, something really kind of, useful, right? Yeah. Useful. And we got to talking about this, and then the astrological stuff started to show up. And it was like, okay, well, boom, I'm talking about swords. You've seen the series. You've got Mars in the 4th house. Mars rules things like swords and guns and implements of war. And so she got very excited. She got very excited with the prospect that her husband could do something that he really, really enjoys and could actually do it at home. And now they could have kind of a post-coronavirus economy or post-coronavirus occupation. And I've been working with people along those lines for the last 2 weeks. And I got to tell you, 3 weeks, it's very exciting stuff. We talk about people coming online, and if you're not doing your job, then what the hell are you going to do?
Yeah. I'm experiencing the same thing. I've had a lot of new clients, a lot of people who haven't taken the time to deal with their health and wellness because they've been so busy with other things or whatnot. Like, they're deciding that, okay, well, now I have nothing to do but spend time with myself. And if I don't like myself or don't like how I feel, then that's an awful lot to deal with. So I'm having a good amount of new clients, and we're having actually rather quick success and people doing really well. And so that's awesome. And we started the new sort of wellness meetup. It's the Get Happy and Healthy in 2020 deal. And we're doing that over on Patreon, on the Off Planet Media Patreon, but it's for all patrons. Our regular Patreon chat group is just for the 7 and up patrons, but this is for everyone, because I think that's the best use of this time, right? Instead of fretting over this possibly made up virus, if you use this time to make gains in your health and happiness and whatnot, then you're going to be in a great position on the other side of this, whatever that looks like. And then I also started this conspiracy cocktail. It's been a lot of fun. We do it every Saturday night, so people can find us there at 5 o'clock PST on Saturdays. You can join up with the Conspiracy Cocktail group on Facebook, and it's a curated experience of cocktails, information, and music, and it's lots of fun. We had Michael Wan sit on the panel with us on Saturday night. And that was awesome. I really liked him. And so that was cool. And just doing my normal thing, regular consultations, my normal stuff at Off Planet. I just had an awesome interview with Jacob Lieberman, one with Sonia. So lots of stuff rolling. It's a good time.
Good deal. Yeah. And, on my side with the media stuff, I've had our friend Steve Mercer help me out on Fridays. We've got really great guests. And this Friday, got E. Michael Jones coming on, Andrew Kaufman. He'll be there, bring some music in, Hope Easton. And then next week, to me, this is a total score. And I hope the interview kind of unfolds the way that the video that I saw. So I posted this video over on the 11th House page on Facebook, and it's a guy by the name of Howard Storm, who was an art professor, and in the 1980s went to France with some students, suffered a perforated stomach, and then dies. Right, this guy dies, and he winds up like going to hell. And he has this moment where there's the light. He connects with Jesus. Jesus takes him out of there. It's a very compelling video. And then he's shown his life, and he's been shown how selfish he was, and he just wants to stay because the vibe is really cool and everything. Now you got to go back. So he comes back to his body, and then he winds up going into the seminary, and he becomes a minister. So I looked him up and I started to read more about him. And one of the things that he also saw, but he did not talk about in the video that I saw, was he had a vision of America. Like he had a prophecy moments. And some of the stuff that is kind of alluded to in the vision seems to be happening right about now.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So I haven't seen anybody do any interviews with him. And I said, I got to get this guy on my show because his story is so compelling. I mean, whether you're a Christian or not, or whether you believe in Jesus or, any of that stuff, the story is so compelling.
Yeah.
About death and life after death. And so I just wanted to have him on the show. He's going to be on the show next week.
That's cool.
I'm totally looking forward to that. Yeah.
Yeah, hats off to Steve. I know he's doing a great job helping you. He's helping me with Conspiracy Cocktail, and he is a really gifted producer. He has this way of bringing the right elements together to just make kind of a magical experience. So I'm appreciating working with him a little bit. And I'm glad you are as well. He's starting to get his voice out there, so he's a cool guy. Anyway, alrighty, that'll do it for us. You know where to find Robert. You find him at robertphoenix.com. And over at 15 Minutes of Flame almost every day. And you can find me on Off Planet Media and right here on the Emily Moyer YouTube channel. And we'll see you guys next time. We'll be back to mash a little more Matrix. See you next time, guys. Bye-bye.